what's up? What's up? We're back. I was gonna say what's back? We're back. I'm Jeff. He's Chad. It's Orange Buds Live. I'm Delirious on a Wednesday. Do us a solid, like, comment, subscribe to the page. Kind of ignore my stumble out of the gate and give us grace of hitting that thumbs up button. Anyway, jump into the Specs chat. Chat away. Send us some super chats. Might be a good day to get your chats read. Mm-hmm. We're talking recruiting. It's funny. Chad and I've had this real open dialogue where I feel like I've been repeating myself every single show for the last couple of weeks. And I was like, Chad, do we need to talk about all of this recruiting stuff? Do I need to hit the same points and talk about the same things? And he was like, well, Jeff, I don't think it's old news because Texas literally missed out on a couple of commitments yesterday. There's a couple of more tomorrow they might miss out on. Like, they're missing on guys in real time. It's news. I don't know how old it can be. To which I said, touche. Let's talk about it, because there still is a big conversation to be had about what's happening, Chad, in 2026 recruiting as this team, likely a preseason number one, gets ready to go into the season. There's this feeling that recruiting isn't up to snuff, that they're getting their asses kicked left and right. What's going on? And I feel like we've had this conversation. I feel like there will be people who Money B will be in the chat and he'll say, look, Catch, I've heard you say this before, but Chad, maybe you haven't. You weren't here last week, and maybe this is because of where we are. It's like when Billie Jean came out on the radio. Sometimes you have to play it once an hour, and maybe this is our version of Billie Jean. We have to keep saying a lot of the same things because things keep happening that make people ask the question that they may have asked 72 hours before.
Right.
They ask it again, wondering, did this change anything? And I think that's fair. Like, I understand, hey, we didn't get Brandon Rouse yesterday if you're a Texas fan, and it doesn't look like Jamarian Carlton's going to happen. And what the hell is happening? What should be our expectations? Is this doom and gloom? Are you screaming fire? We'll have that conversation today.
Yeah, I just think a constant balancing of the panic versus the relax meter, one's at one end, one's at another. I think the revisiting is good. And like you mentioned, especially when we're sitting in this unique spot today, we come on in the 12 o'clock hour on a Wednesday. Texas went 0 for 2 on a Tuesday, and there's 2 really big commitments coming up on a Thursday. And I think we need to just kind of dig in, and then wherever that leads us for the general conversation, we'll see. We got a great graphic to show everybody. If you're a Texas fan, you're going to love the graphic today. We promise. So, Catch, let's start with the 2 yesterday. Let's start with the 0 for 2. Jalen Lott picks Oregon, and Braden Rouse picks Tennessee. Your reaction, however you want to slice it up.
Jalen Lott's one of the 5 best football players in the state this year. It never felt like Texas recruited him as hard as they did any of the receivers from last year. I think Texas took a massive wide receiver class a year ago. I think a lot of those guys aren't going to get out on the field. And I think wide receiver is a position where, they got Emmett Mosley and you know what I mean? Like they don't lose a lot at the wide receiver position at all. In fact, if I pull it up right now, they've got 10 wide receivers on scholarship, Chad, and none of them are seniors. So if DeAndre Moore goes pro, they'd still have 9, not including Cohen Brown and Chris Stewart, who are already committed. So numbers-wise, they're good. DeAndre Moore is the only upperclassman in the program. So of the 10, 9 are freshmen and sophomores. So I don't think wide receiver is a position that they're really freaking out about. Like it is, you know me, I'm about collect the talent, never stop collecting the talent, get elite talent. You can't have enough guys, but they're fairly deep at that position. I think when you look at Braden Rouse, you see a guy, God, I thought about it while I was taking a shower. Player comparisons. It finally hit me like 30 minutes ago. He reminds me a lot of Marcus Wilkins, which is one for the kids. That's over a quarter century ago.
That's a while ago.
Marcus Wilkins did play in the NFL, though. But
Marcus Wilkins. Okay. Yeah.
Rouse is one of these guys. He's undersized. He looks like a safety. He plays linebacker. He's got all of these skills, but he needs to fill out. He needs to grow up a little bit. There's some physical maturity. And I think he's a couple of years away from playing, but he could be a starter in a couple of years. I think he's a really good prospect. I didn't think he was a super blue chip, an absolute, this is a guy that you have to have. But I can see that guy being a program in 2020, a starter at Texas in 2028. But I think he would need some time. Both really good players, both really good prospects. I think Texas fans have to settle in with they are, I think, kind of about where they want to be in recruiting internally right now. I think they feel like a lot of this stuff doesn't matter. You and I have done shows for multiple years now where commitments have gone early, and even when Texas was going to get them, I've said the attitude behind the scenes that this is a thing that's going to be a November or December battle. Mm-hmm. You go all the way back to the Anthony Hill recruitment when he committed early to Texas A&M. Yep. Literally days after that, Texas people were like, we're good. Just wait till we get to November and December, and that will play its way out. And I think Texas feels like for the last 3 or 4 years, they've kind of had this attitude. Don't overreact in the summer. Everything's going to be fine. So far it has been. And I think one of the things that we're going to talk about with the graphics and stuff we have is add some context to this real quick.
Yeah. And by the way, we see those super chats. Jay, Oscar, I got them marked. We'll get to them.
I think it might have even been I wanted Jay. Let's go to Jay's because I want to start.
Okay. All right. Cool. I got you right here. Jay, $5 super chat. Not one to panic in July. Of course not, Jay. But why does it at least seem like others are able to spend in a way we aren't right now? I think flips will be hard this year.
You just said an interesting word there, Jay. Seems. What you think seems is wrong. That's why it seems. And it isn't. Why is it that we're not able to? There's a difference between why are we not able to and why does it seem like we're not able to. Let me give you a stat. And Chad, before we go to mega into the full screens that we have, can you pop them up for a second? What the 2025 numbers. Before we dive into the numbers, okay. I want everybody to look at the top 5 teams in the country when it comes to elite level talent in the program. If you go all the way over to the left, you can see that was last year's Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Texas. If you look at this year's, it's still Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Oregon. Those are the 5 schools, okay? Before we dive into this, I just want you to see those 5 schools. They're the ones in college football right now that dominate talent acquisition among the elite of the elite of the elite. Okay, Chad, you can bring that down for a moment. Those 5 schools so far have combined for 8 unanimous super blue chips committed. What does that mean? Well, super blue chip is somebody who's rated as a high 4-star or a 5-star in one of the recruiting services. A unanimous means Rivals, On3, 24/7, ESPN, all of them rank that prospect as elite of the elite. A unanimous super blue chip. Only 8 of those guys are committed right now in the 2026 class to those 5 schools. 3 of them are committed to Texas. Which is a way of saying it may seem like all of Texas's peers are out here spending money and acquiring goods that Texas isn't. But when it comes to the elite of the elite of the elite among the big 5, I think we're going to put that back up for different reasons in a little bit. But like when I called Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, and Oregon the big 5 in terms of talent acquisition with elite players, it is obvious. Mm-hmm. It is. They stand alone. Well, among the 5 schools that stand alone, Texas isn't taking a back seat to anybody. They're just not. And I think it's important that Texas fans understand that on some level, they're not cleaning up in recruiting, I think, the way we would anticipate Texas to clean up. That's fair. They did miss out on a couple of guys yesterday. They're not cleaning the board up. But when it comes to elite of the elite of the elite prospects, they are with their peers Let me give you an example, okay? Texas right now has 3 unanimous super blue chips, and they've got 2 other guys who have at least one player that has a national top 65 grade. Georgia has 4 consensus super blues, but only one of them is unanimous. Texas has 3. All of them are unanimous. Oh, Georgia has 4 consensus super blues, but only one is unanimous. Ohio State, like Texas, has 3 consensus super blue chip commitments. Only 2 of them are unanimous. Alabama has 6 super blue chips consensus committed right now. Hey,
is Bama still good? Are they still decent? They can still get talent? Okay.
But Chad, only one of them is unanimous.
Aha. So they're terrible.
And Oregon has 5 consensus super blue chips, but only one of them is unanimous. Mm-hmm. So it really, if we were making a fantasy football trade, Texas would not trade Dia Bell, Richard Wesley, and John Turntine for anybody else's collection of players.
Right.
They're like, you're trading me 2 dimes and a nickel for a quarter. Our guys are worth more. And so if you're a Texas fan, like, chill the fuck out, man, for real. Like, that is among the players that matter the most. Texas, it does have less than Alabama this year. And we'll get into some Alabama discussion in a little bit. Because I think it's interesting what's happening there. But Alabama's got 6, but they only have 1 that is like Dia Bell or Richard Wesley or John Turntine. Everybody agrees those dudes walk around with wallets that say bad MF on them. These other schools don't have the same number of dudes walking around with everybody agrees bad MFer. So don't pay attention to team recruiting rankings. Those don't matter. Who is acquiring the elite of the elite talent? USC, they're doing it, but as we'll show you in a little bit, they're not among the top teams in the country right now with elite talent on their roster. What does that mean? They got more money to spend. They got a bunch of revenue sharing money that's not locked up into badass players like Colin Simmons or Ryan Wingo or Anthony Hill or so on and so on and so on. Notre Dame, not in the top 12 currently of teams with, so they're having their best recruiting year in forever. I think they've got 5 consensus super blue chips on their commitment list, but they're not in the top 12. They don't have the burden of carrying the weight of costs that Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, and Oregon do. And so I think it's really important when you watch recruiting this year, the teams that are really making the biggest splashes are the ones that have more, they're more flush with cash because their rosters right now aren't as deep. The schools at the top, the Big 5, they're all about the same in recruiting right now. I mean, you could probably get an Alabama fan that would say, I'll take my 6 and only one of us is unanimous over your 3. But that might be confirmation bias. Oregon might say, we'll take our 5 and only one of them is unanimous. Everybody's got a group that they all probably like, for whatever reasons that are particular to them. Texas will look at this and go, what are the 3 most important positions in football? Quarterback, edge rusher, really left tackle.
O-line, yeah.
O-line. That's not quite what Texas has. They have quarterback, edge rusher, and probably an interior guy. But their 3 big unanimous super blue chips are literally the 3 most important positions on the field.
Yeah, you're right. And they definitely wouldn't trade them.
Now look, Texas has to do better. And the coaching staff would say, we know what we have to do. When we get to December and January, we will. We're not stressed. But things aren't going Texas's way the way they would want them to. But there's no reason to be stressed over it. And I think that's where the conversation goes from here, Chad.
I see the 3 super chats. We will get to them. By the way, whether you are in panic mode or relax mode, you might need a drink. How about the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room? They are open Thursdays through Sundays, and it's always a good time. They'll mix up whatever kind of cocktail will make you feel better. Pineapple is, of course, out there now, the 9th flavor. You can go have a tasting of all 9 flavors of Deep Eddy vodka and learn the history. Go check them out there in beautiful Dripping Springs. They also have a great barbecue food truck right there on site. Crimson Creek Smokehouse. The barbecue is excellent as well. Tell them we said hey from Orange Bloods Live when you visit the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Help you relax, help you panic, whatever you need to do, they'll help you. We've got good super chats rolling in. I think it was Oscar's that came in second. $4.99 from Oscar. I only wonder, is this different than the last couple cycles? It feels like so many more misses, but I don't know. Wait, I don't know. It's easy to overreact in July. Yes, it is, Oscar. It is easy to overreact. Catch, in terms of the cycle, does it feel any different to you following this like you do?
Well, yeah. There's $1 billion+ being spent by the actual schools themselves in this recruiting window. That's never happened before in the history of college football. Yeah, it's different. It's
not
different.
Not out in the open. Not out in the open.
It's Felix Ojo's agent announced his contract was signed. What do you mean is it different?
Catch, can you imagine if any of the power people that orchestrated SMU back in the day, if they're still alive, can you imagine what they thought when they saw that tweet come out? Like, wait,
hey,
what?
I would love, I don't know where Frank Irwin is, but I would love for somebody to whisper to him in heaven or heaven. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Frank.
Yo.
You hear what they're doing in the SEC and college football? No, I stopped watching that. They wouldn't let me pay players. It's funny that you would say that.
Crazy you'd mention that. Oh, by the way, did I mention Texas is in the SEC now? Yeah. Wow. Oscar, we appreciate the super chat as always. Yes, very different in this particular cycle because of that. Let's see. Catch the Wave with a $4.99. Hey, fellas, congrats on going independent. Besides subscriptions and super chats, are there any other resources that you need from the community? Wow, look at Catch the Wave. Catch the Wave. Are you flush with cash like Texas Tech?
I would, you know what? All I want is like patience. We are literally working through some kinks behind the scenes. There are still people. I just came across somebody.
Here we go.
Been logged into the wrong account for a week, and we've had a hard time getting patience, and just continued grace for like a week. Let me get to next Tuesday, and everybody can be jerks to me all over again. But like, you know, I'm literally calling people on the phone when I'm not on the show. And I'm like, okay, now hit the login button. Do you see the login button? You got to click the login button. Now, what happened? And you would think that the answer would be, oh, well, the screen worked. And no, every time it's like a goddamn box of chocolates. So for those of you who are still working through some issues, please, thank you for your patience. And I just continue to ask for a little bit more. I think we've worked through 99% of this, but man, I feel bad for the 1% that still aren't in.
Catch the Wave. Thank you. Also, Mark, thank you for what might just be a little throw into the tip jar. $4.99. Didn't see a message with it. If you want to throw us a message,
12
to do that.
I answered his question, Chad.
12. Yeah, there you go. Jay with another $5. Only concern is that Jason said the kids are getting money for committing, which will make it almost impossible to decommit without paying it back.
I mean, that's going to be part of it. I think that one of the things that's really interesting that's taking place in the Texas locker room right now in the football coaching department is, and I think it's funny. I was with Bill King earlier today, Chad.
I love Bill.
And the Ojo conversation came up.
Bill King.
And I told him, I said, you know, what's really interesting about that is it's the first 5-star that Texas has ever lost in the history of recruiting. When it was over, there were legitimately Texas fans who were saying it's a good thing that we lost that recruitment because we can take that money over $1 million in 2026, $2 million for the next, whatever the number would have been. I don't believe it's 775 with Texas Tech. I just think that's what they're trying to tell people.
They're trying to lowball the report.
Just trying to get it like, oh, when you come asking us for money, ask for the 775 money that we're telling you exists and not the 1.7 that I think does. No, it's a guaranteed deal, but it's over 17 seasons. It's really he's paying us, actually, is how it's working. We gave him the Bobby Bonilla deal.
I was just thinking he and Bobby are going to get to the finish line about the same time.
Whatever they feel like they've got to say to make it so that guys in their locker room aren't asking for money.
Yeah.
I think the Alabama thing's a really interesting point of this. They've got 6 guys. They're way more aggressive in recruiting right now. I looked at the financial costs. And Alabama's got like $14 to $17 million worth of super blue chip value on their roster coming back next season, projected.
Right. And this is you estimating about $1 million per super blue chip, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Just
to keep it.
Just to make it as easy for us to just do simple accounting as possible.
Right.
Give or take $500,000.
Yeah. God love them.
God loves either direction. There's like $1 million plus or minus.
Yeah.
But the point of that is to say, their revenue sharing money is largely accounted for. And I think Texas feels like not so much Alabama, but the Texas Techs and the other programs of the world, Baylor's maybe, who are spending. I think Texas feels like when this season is over with, that entire Texas Tech roster is going to walk into Joey McGuire's office and say, I'm one of your 10 best players. I'm not making 2% of the freshmen pay me. And I think they feel like that's going to happen all over the country, that schools are going to overextend. The one thing that you would say about Texas and Ohio State and Georgia and Oregon from a roster retention standpoint, nobody's been through the ringer more than those teams have been. Think about it.
Yeah.
Season ends, Texas had more than 40 one-on-one NIL conversations the next week with different players. Wow. And they kept everybody there except for one guy, Amari Niblack, went to Texas A&M. That's it. Yeah. And I think they feel like, well, we did that and we know how hard that is. Believe me, Texas knows how hard that is. They feel like these other schools are going to learn the lessons that Texas and Ohio State and some of these schools that have been forced to kind of have this lived experience that these other schools haven't yet. I think they feel like the winter portal is going to have more talent in it because we're in a world where all of these schools have to live on a budget. And I think there's an expectation that some of these schools are going to be bad spenders. Some of these schools aren't going to have a great plan in place. Some of these schools are going to invest too much money in recruiting and not enough in roster retention. And I think Texas feels like we've got as many young players who are elite of the elite as anybody in college football. They may feel like their 2026 focus should be on who makes 26 the best possible team that we can have. And again, it goes back to the conversation of Felix Ojo. You lose him. Mm-hmm. If Felix Ojo was committed to Texas, we'd be talking about how nobody has more than 4 unanimous super blue chips. But I do think there would be Texas fans who would say, I know I should be happy, but you're telling me that Felix Ojo might not play until 2028. Yeah. And I am about, I don't want to spend more than $1 million a season on a player that's not going to play.
Yeah, especially if we assume the agent would have done the exact same thing if he picks Texas. Yeah. Like, assume that same thing happened, right? That it literally was out there that not only did Texas get him, but the agent decided to brag the same way. Whew, that would give Texas fans a ton to think about instantly.
No, they would. I mean, when the agent, we've been talking about these numbers out loud on our show forever. When he said them and it got reported, it just became real in a way for people. Yeah. Like, it's almost like, I saw it in the newspaper. What do you mean? Like I held a newspaper in my hand and read it, and it felt realer than on the internet. And you're like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
But
Get a hard copy.
But it's also just the ultimate. There's only a small group of people that we know could absolutely verify that. And it starts with Ojo, and there's only a couple other people.
Sometimes people just think we're talking monopoly money.
Right.
And
but when you hear it, it's just, it's like hearing that your neighbor down the street's going to get a Lamborghini is one thing. Seeing him drive it down the street, it's like, oh, well, all right. Bill got a Lambo.
I'm telling you, there were just, and maybe it was sour grapes, and maybe it's the way that you tell yourself what you got to tell yourself at night to go to sleep at night and get a full 8 hours. I'm sure there's some of that, but intellectually there is a real conversation to be had about if you're Texas, Ohio State, if you're one of these teams now, and Chad, bring the full screen graphic up. I got to admit, it's really busy. There's a lot on the graphic.
There's a lot on it. We'll get to it. We'll take a breath. But you know what? You just mentioned a good night's sleep.
Oh, so what a segue that is.
Let me take the opportunity to talk a little sinus and snoring specialist, because if you need a good night's sleep, this is your place. I went in 2017. They got rid of my allergies for good. They dealt with my snoring and sleep apnea issues, and I sleep like a baby. You can too. The number's right there, 601-0303. You can securely text them and call on that number. You can also go to sinussnoringent.com. I've told you they've added another doctor to the practice. That means there's more appointment times available. Morning, afternoon, whatever works for you, they're going to make sure they get that done. They also accept the MOTA insurance now. So if you're on MOTA, you can now take advantage that way as well. So many options, non-surgical, surgical options. They've got some that others just don't have. So check them out. Feel clear, rested, and healthy with sinus and snoring specialists. And to be fair, once you get that good night's sleep, you might need it if you hit the tables at Hijack Poker. Hijackpoker.com. Be rested, be ready to go, and then go get some money. You can deposit all kinds of ways. You can deposit and cash out at one of the 6 Texas Card House locations. Check out hijackpoker.com for great online poker. And of course, we want to thank Texas Card House. You see that logo all the time in the upper right, hanging out with the Specs Rabbit. Texas Card House, your sponsor for the 12 o'clock show every day. All right, Catch, are you ready for busy graphic time? Because there's a lot of good info in this graphic. I just wedged it all in there, threw it all in for everybody. Here is your graphic, which goes from the 24 consensus blue chip, super blue chip rankings to the 25. And if you just want to see the difference, that's your upper right. I put those big 5 in bold for you, Catch, so you can see them all. And then there's some other folks in there, kind of what's going on. The definition for the consensus super blue chip stuff, just threw that in there. So in case people need to know.
Oh, it's all there. Like you got it all on there.
Here's your information, Catch. And it does show us that, interestingly enough, out of the big 5, only 2 of them went up in the last year. The Ducks have 4 more super blue chips than they did a couple years ago. Texas has 1 more than they did last year.
I think if you just look at the 2025 numbers for a second, with Georgia at 25, Ohio State at 22, Texas, Alabama, Oregon, I don't know, because of the way college football works, I don't know that we're ever going to see more separation at the top from what I would call the next tier. This may be as wide as it ever gets moving forward. What you don't see in these numbers is that you can go back and see Ohio State and Georgia, they have fallen back to the pack to some degree. Now, falling back to the pack, they're still 1 and 2. But a year ago, Ohio State and Georgia both essentially had a double-digit lead on Texas. Mm-hmm. Ohio State doubled up Oregon. Ohio State now has a 4-player advantage on Oregon. They had a 15-player advantage over them a year ago.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, Georgia and Alabama were both over 40. Almost every other scholarship player on their roster was a consensus super blue chip.
That's so crazy.
That's not all of their players. They probably had another 20 that was rated by 1.
So, Catch, you're telling me Kirby Smart and all of his boosters and fans, they're mad that they only have 25 of them right now?
Well, I think Kirby Smart and Alabama fans are looking, if they were to keep up with this data the way that I'm looking at it over the course of the last 5 years. For instance, in 2020, I have it on a chart. I'm gonna get it, Tyler, to update it. We may have it on a show tomorrow. It's the chart of how many consensus super blue chips did every national champion over the last 15 years have. Alabama's last national championship team had 39.
That's so dumb.
With that, like, think about them playing A&M tomorrow and lining up on the field with 4 times as many elite players. It speaks to what 5 years ago the sport was trying to do. There's a reason why Georgia and Alabama just kept alternating, and that, boy, you better have Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence at quarterback if you want to break that up. And then what it took with Michigan was like a super mature team with NFL players at quarterback and running back and kind of everywhere, especially on defense. Like, maybe you can build Michigan again before you can build what Alabama and Georgia had. Georgia and Alabama have come back to the pack in a big, big way. You look at Texas, and Texas is still moving up.
Yep.
Texas has closed the gap on Georgia. Texas has closed the gap on Ohio State significantly. A year ago, when those two teams met in the playoffs, Ohio State had a 10-player advantage. This season, it's 2. And the trends are great for Texas. But what did we just talk about? None of these big 5 are going crazy. In fact, let's go through them. Alabama is going a little crazy. I think everybody acknowledges that. But Oregon this year, I mean, they're having a good year, but nobody's like, oh my God, Phil Knight and his money. LSU, we know they went crazy in the portal, been kind of quiet lately.
Yeah. Nice move overall, though, at +4.
Yes. And all of that is almost in the portal.
Yeah.
Wide receivers. They collected them. It's Barian Brown. It's Nick Anderson. They went and got playmakers to give Nussmeier this season. But you can see
they're the ones that answered your question about Barian Brown finally.
And you know what? Don't sleep on LSU.
Yep.
If you were going to be in Vegas and you were like, I should put a 20 on a couple of teams. Alabama, I think people literally have forgotten what Nick Saban built. And whatever Alabama isn't, they still have as much raw talent on their team as Texas. And we think Texas is the number 1, right? Or in that conversation.
Yeah.
Clemson, Miami, Penn State, A&M, Oklahoma, they're all doing okay. But the thing that I would say if I was talking to a Texas fan today, what's the thing that stands out? Nobody's gaining on Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, or Alabama, or Oregon. Not really. Now, can they keep that distance between them and the rest of the sport? Because, again, when the distance looks like this, Chad, when basically, look, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia, starting at number 7 nationally, they double up every team in the country.
Yep.
This has more super blue chips consensus than A&M and Oklahoma combined. Meaning, if A&M and Oklahoma combined teams, they could then get on a field with Texas and on paper have an equal amount of talent. So, perspective, people. You really need to know these numbers before you should start freaking out in recruiting. Because all that matters for me is at the end of the year, does Texas have enough super blue chips consensus that they don't do a -7 or a -5 or a -3 or even a -1? Can they hold? Because this may be as good as it ever gets in college football again because of the finances involved. It may be 20 is the sweet spot. And by God, if you can get there, you're a legitimate, if you are in the group of teams that if you don't win a national championship, you disappointed. You should be a quarterfinals team at worst. You should probably be in the semifinals unless you happen to run into one of these other teams. I mean, think about it. Georgia, who'd they lose to? Oregon, who'd they lose to? Texas, who'd they lose to? Right? I mean, these teams all could have won the national championship. They ran into each other.
Right. Georgia's the one that lost to Notre Dame.
That's right. You're right. Georgia lost to Notre Dame. They lost
Notre Dame
their quarterback, though, and tried to do that with one hand tied behind their back. You're right. Ohio State. I got Ohio State's path slightly different. So I just, I just don't think panic is the word. If you're Texas, you're calm. You're halfway. They've averaged 6 super consensus blue chips. You can take it down, Chad. They've averaged 6 a year for the last 3 seasons. They're halfway there now.
Yeah.
So between now and signing day, do we think Steve Sarkisian can get commitments from 3 more badass players that are at the level that they've been? Yeah, of course. So we're having the wealthy. We're like Bill Gates had a bad night at the casino last night. Is he okay? Well, Phil can have a couple of bad nights.
Yeah.
Phil, all the ills can have them. Texas can probably have a bad day with a super blue chip player. They got a bunch of them. They have to keep those numbers up. Don't suggest that I'm saying, well, they can sit pat and rest easy and sit on their laurels. No. But they have a massive advantage over almost everybody in college football. Are they doing what they need to do to maintain that right now? And the answer is yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We got a couple of super chats that came in. Let's start with Jerry, the Targaryen Steamboat. Always a fun name to say. Thank you, Jerry. Texas assumptions are based on other teams following the rules and not doing unreported NIL deals. But teams will find a way to pay retention by crook. Oh, here we go, Catch. Texas is doing it the right way. Everyone else is cheating. Your thoughts?
I just hate you. You never hear that shit come out of my mouth. I detest it. Put that list back up there, Chad.
Yeah.
Put it back up. Guys, really. What? Listen to how you sound. Seriously. Look at that. Oh, other teams are doing things the wrong way and they're cheating under the table. We don't do that. You're right. Texas just clawing and scratching with the good book under their arm. Guys, it's college football in 2025. There are no real rules. They're trying to implement them. You don't get into the top 5 by being nice and living in the black and the white. You do it by living in the gray. You think Texas evened Alabama in talent in 3 years because they weren't overly aggressive and pushing the envelope in every way that it can? Guys, stop. You know what you can do? It's okay. You know what? It's funny. Chad, I got into an argument with my wife last week.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what she did, okay? She texted a friend, a boyfriend of a friend. He's a mechanic, right?
Okay.
So she wanted him to see if he could look at her car. The key broke. And rather than take it to the dealer and have to get one of those, was like, oh, he can fix it inexpensively. So she's trying to, and she was like, hey, man, heard about your breakup. He didn't know that she knew that.
Oh.
And then he was like calling our friend and was like, hey, did you tell people that we broke up? Like, why'd you do that? And she was like, well, because we did break up. And he was like, well, I don't like that. Now they're not broken up anymore. And Heather triggered the whole thing because she inappropriately referenced a relationship. She didn't have to say anything. So you know what I did? I told her, Heather, hey, man, sometimes just don't talk about people's business. Like maybe just don't.
Mm-hmm.
She clutched her pearls and she was like, "Oh, forgive me. I'm trying to like be a good person and send someone an encouraging note, and I'm the bad." And I'm like listening to it, right? I'm listening to it. I walked away. I'm listening to her. I brushed my teeth while she's just going on a tirade. When she's done, I walked in there. I looked my wife in the face. And I said, "Heather," as calmly as I could, Chad, just once, why couldn't you just say, "My bad, I won't do that again"?
How'd that go?
She heard me.
Oh,
She
good.
literally was like, "Oh, my bad, won't do that again." Sometimes rather than do this thing, and Jerry, I love you as one of our deals. I'm not picking on Jerry the Targaryen, okay? I'm not. But sometimes just tip your cap and go, "Hey, man, Texas Tech wanted Felix Ojo a little bit worse than Texas did." It's okay. It's okay to say that. I've been saying every show for the last 7 weeks. One school's $300,000 defensive tackle is another school's $700,000 defensive tackle. And if the player is like, "No offense to the strength of your degree program, but I want to go take the $700,000 because it's more than twice as much money," then we got to be able to go, "Okay, well, that's going to happen in 2025. Can't get in our feelings about it." This is, what do you do when Chad, Cowboys didn't get their guy in the draft? You going to cry? What are you going to do? You going to go protest? What's wrong with the Cowboy? We understand that in pro sports, sometimes you don't get your guy, man.
Right. Exactly. You just got to go get him in free. Well, never mind. It's not. Never mind.
I just think Texas takes advantage. Texas's roster screams to. Think about what they did in the last portal. What did they do? They added a starting wide receiver, poached a sophomore, best wide receiver on a Power 4 team, took him, took a sophomore defensive tackle, paid him like $1 million to come over from Syracuse or Maryland or wherever the hell Rashad Watson was, Murad Watson.
Yep.
They had a huge need at tight end. What did they do? They went and got a guy who's got a second-round draft pick and some early ESPN mocks. They did all that before all those guys even hit the portal. The portal came out, and those guys all announced before anybody else even knew who the hell was in the portal. And you got Texas fans who are like, "I don't like what some of these schools are doing. I think they might be calling these players behind the scenes before." It's happening everywhere.
It is happening.
If you were UTSA and you were like, "It's bullshit the way Baylor and Tech and TCU," forget about Texas and Texas A&M. Baylor's spending $15 million out of their athletic. That's messed up. They have a right to be mad. They do. That's unfair. But this is just the way the game goes. If you've ever seen The Wire, you got to channel your inner Avon Barksdale. What would Avon say? Hey, game's the game.
Yeah.
The game's the game. You can't be. You know what you guys sound like? You sound like Omar complaining because somebody he knows got jacked. You can't be at the top of the jacker list and then clutch your pearls when your car gets stolen.
All right, we got a couple super chats we are going to get to. Speaking of the game,
that makes sense, right?
Oh, it does.
I sometimes feel like I feel like Will Ferrell in
is it Old School with the crazy pills?
No, the male model movie Zoolander. Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
That's crazy pills. Yeah, I always mix those up with the crazy pills. That's the Zoolander with crazy pills. Yes, well, no, I think you're absolutely right. We'll get the super chats in. You also mentioned
Tech fans win one goddamn recruitment, and Texas acts like the end of we got to turn Texas Tech in. What booster is going over at Texas Tech and getting out of line over there? It really is preposterous when you think about it. Baylor might get Jamarian Carlton, right? And it's like, what's up with Baylor getting in on our territory? Something has to be done about that. It's like, I'm telling you, man, like it's like going to the bar with Brad Pitt and then him getting upset because one time the prettiest girl in the club thought his nerdy friend was the one.
Yeah.
One time. Of course, for Texas, to be fair, it's been like 6 times this month.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, that's right. The Texas fan would say back to you, hey, the girls keep walking out of the bar.
Well,
2 girls walked out of the bar
yesterday. A week has gone by and you ain't gotten laid in a week and you're still Brad Pitt. You're probably going to start asking.
Right. These are
Is
Brad
my
Pitt
hair not combed? Like, what's happening?
These are Brad Pitt problems, right? You're going to start saying,
Thank
wait,
you.
Do they know I'm in the F1? Do they know I'm in that F1 movie? I'm driving a car and everything. Did they not see it?
Hey, Brad can get in his way a little bit if a week of failures go by. He just needs to realize, hey, if I went to the mall right now, what would happen? And that's what it's like Texas. Yeah. If Texas got on a field right now with Texas Tech neutral, do you feel better?
Oh, yeah.
And look, Texas Tech got David Bailey, that edge player out of Stanford.
Yep.
That kid probably $2 million. And that's how you get a guy to go from Stanford to Lubbock. Talk about an adjustment process. I'm guessing.
Same campus. A lot of people say same campus.
They flew that kid in at night. There's no way they let that kid walk off an airplane during the daytime.
Come on now.
And that is an old recruiting trick that Spike Dykes used to play.
Yeah. Yep.
They'd fly the kids in at night so they wouldn't be startled seeing Lubbock. And if you haven't been to Lubbock, kids, it's a sight.
Yeah.
You remember it, Chad, don't you?
Oh, of course. And right now, McGuire and Campbell and that crew, they're trying to create a different image of Lubbock. They're trying to create, kind of the secret, the best kept secret thing with Lubbock, but there's still some of that.
Oh, it's like, hey, man, you've seen Landman. If you got enough money, you can have a good time in Odessa.
Right.
And these kids, if you're rich in Lubbock, do you know how far that goes? That's a lot more than having money. In LA, everybody has money.
Yeah. And apparently
if you're $250,000 and you're the most popular person at our school.
Yeah. And apparently if you can get them out there, right now, their facilities are badass. Like there's stuff out there the kids are really responding to in Lubbock.
Can I say the inappropriate thing about women that it's not like so inappropriate that I would lose my job. But the other thing that they always say when I was in high school, like you start talking about the women at Texas Tech.
Oh, here we go.
And I heard this old timer say this once. He went,
here we go.
He said, hell, they might have dust in their teeth, but they're beautiful.
Dust in their teeth. The wind does blow out there. The wind does blow. I've never been to Lubbock. I've never been to Lubbock where the wind wasn't blowing.
I heard this old timer say that once, and I stole it, and I've used it my entire life. They might have dirt in their teeth, but they're beautiful. Let's not get it mistaken.
But let's just make sure we understand here.
Per capita, Tech may have the most beautiful campus in Texas. It's up there. Like, it's up there. Per capita. Because I know Texas State and Texas would be like, whoa.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, right. Texas Tech's got gorgeous women, dude.
Another super chat comes in. We will get to those. Also, let me tell you about AV consultations coming up tomorrow and Friday. I will not be on the show, but Ketch will play those videos for you. But let me just tell you the story one more time because it happened. My buddy visits his brother in D.C., and his brother's got a bigger TV than he does, and he can't stand for it. He got back home, and he called me, and he said, man, I said, well, how big is it? And he's like, I don't know, man. It's like 80, 85. I got to get to work. And AV Consultations is the place that can help you figure that out. If your brother, your mother, your grandmother, or somebody in your life has outscreened you, the bigger screen, better screen, he went up there and his brother had the quad box with like news channels on every box. Freaked my boy out. Now he's got to get a better TV, a bigger screen, a better setup. AV Consultations can do that for you. 255-8678. They've been doing it since 1988. They know it all. They've done it all. They've answered all those questions you've got. Get it taken care of. They just might be able to get it done for you by football season. 255-8678 or go to avconsultations.com. All right. We had super chats rolling in. Let's make sure I didn't miss one. Jerry Targaryen does have another one, but first let's clean off a couple. Turd Ferguson. Stop crying, people. Sark always finishes strong.
But they're fine now. That's the thing I'm trying to say is it's.
So, yeah, you'd agree with this, plus the idea of
if Richard Wesley and John Turntine hadn't committed in the last 2 weeks,
and
they were just sitting there with Diabell, I think I think there's a real poor Texas. They've only picked up 2 national top 30 or 40 prospects in the last 2 weeks, and only one of them was in the top 10.
Yeah. Also, think about this, Catch. What's better for Texas? If Felix Ojo picks Tech or if he picks Ohio State?
Well,
what's better for Texas?
I will say this. I think this is an important question. And if there's super chats, I'm going to let Tracy skip to the front of the line. This is the question.
Okay.
Because I'm pointing at the numbers. It's not about Texas doesn't have spare money or the depth chart left. It's not completely that. There is a limit. There is a limit. It's not that Texas doesn't have money. They just have to be smarter with their money. They're not so flush with cash that they feel like, I think Texas Tech feels like they could give Felix Ojo that kind of money. There's no real consequences. There's nobody else on that roster that will look at Felix Ojo and go, I'm who that guy was. And so I'm getting what he's getting. He's the only guy on that roster that can say, I'm a 5-star, outside of Micah Hudson. Texas has like 25 guys on its roster with ratings and profiles and resumes similar to Felix Ojo. Like those guys would see his contract and go, bet, sweet. Brandon Baker sitting there thinking, oh, hell, I was worried about whether or not they were happy with the return they were getting on my 7 Hyundai-ish. But if he's going to get 1.7, as soon as I get on the field this year, I'm going in.
Cha-ching.
I'm saying, hey, you ain't got to pay me Felix Ojo money. What do we keep saying? You just got to pay me half. I'm a starter. He's not. He's going to get 1.7. Pay me $850. I'll be okay with that. Like the things that will come out of these kids' mouths, because they'll have framed it. They'll be like, hey, I'm not trying to ask for all that. You can give me half of it because I'm actually playing right now. And if you don't, cool. I'll just go get in the portal. I heard Texas has a free $1 million available to spend because they didn't get that guy. So, but what would Tracy, Chad, put the graphic back up again. Tracy, this is the answer.
Okay. Hang on. Let me do this so we can see the graphic clearly. Here we go.
This is the answer. Tracy, you see those 25 numbers? The moment Texas stops having double the numbers of everybody below LSU, then I think you'll have known Texas is coming back to the pack a little bit. But as long as they're in the area of double or almost double the numbers of 125 of the 130 teams in college. I can't stress it enough. Double at a minimum.
Yeah.
When Oklahoma and A&M start closing the gap, even a little bit, even a baby smidge, you can worry. But that is not what's happening right now.
Yeah, your point earlier, Catch, about, if I'm a Texas fan, you look at the 25 list, you're sitting there at 3, and your 2 big rivals are down there at the bottom. It's the bottom of a list you want to be on. But like you said earlier, combine them, you're not at the number of super blue chips that Texas has. Like
Chad, the point that Texas here, I would say, I would argue with you on this. I have written all offseason long, that A&M and Oklahoma are not Texas's business. That Texas is not in the mental capacity right now of what do we need to do to beat the Aggies and the Sooners.
Oh, right. Sure.
Texas's mindset is how do we climb over Georgia and Ohio State, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think in 2025, going into this season, Steve Sarkisian would say those are our rivals. At the end of the season, we have to be better than them. And I would say in the last 12 months, one's -7, one's -5, one's -3. Those schools, I think Georgia rightfully has to be thinking to themselves, what the hell do we have to do to stop the bleeding? I think Ohio State has to look at it and go, whoa, we can't let that happen again. Whatever happens, we can't go -7 next year, because then you're not in the big boy table anymore.
Yeah.
So I would say, Tracy, the answer for all 5 of those schools is stay in the Big 5. Don't get replaced.
Yeah, no kidding. Don't let LSU run you down.
Or anybody.
Yeah.
Because what it would mean, in almost all certainty, is less. Put it back up there real quick, Chad. Hey, man, A&M's going to sign 4 5-stars and 2 high 4-stars. That sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to have probably 3 or 4 coming off of their list. So what does that do from a math standpoint next year? They gain 4, they lose 3. Or they gain 6, but they lose 3. They're at 13, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's incredible. That would be an incredible class. But it only moves them up +3. And if you're Texas, Jesus, just don't go negative at that point. I think Texas is I counted it up. Who do we think Texas is going to lose off of this year's? This is the real question, Chad, just for Texas, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the Texas roster for next season, Trey Moore was a consensus super blue chip transfer. He's the only one on transfer they have that qualifies. They're going to lose, we think, DJ Campbell, and we think Anthony Hill is going to go pro early. That's it. The only other guys that might put these guys all, I think, could. Jelani McDonald, Malik Muhammad, Brad Spence, Jack injuries, DeAndre Moore, Trey Wisner. Those are all juniors. They in theory could have decisions to make, but none of those.
The 2 transfer defensive linemen, could either one of them go?
Well, they have 5 of them. Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw are seniors. They don't count in this group of.
They're moving on for sure. Gotcha.
Hero Canoe, Lavon Johnson, they're juniors, but they don't count in this group of players that we're talking about.
I see what you're doing. Okay.
The only defensive tackle that Texas has that's in this gigantic pile of super blue chips is Justice Terry, and he's a baby.
Yeah.
So, when you're talking about what will they lose at defensive tackle, not any of the guys that we're talking about.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that those guys aren't good players. This is just most of your elite players come from this group of players. If I were to read you the Texas super blue chips, you're thinking Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, Jelani McDonald, Derek Williams, Malik Muhammad, CJ Baxter, Colin Simmons, Ryan Wingo, Kobe Black, Xavier Filsaime, Brandon Baker, Lance Jackson, Khalil Lockett, Jonah Williams, Justice Terry, Jamie French, Trey Moore, DJ Campbell, Neto Yamuzalo. Like, you can put a team together with those guys. That is
and
not
they will.
Those are the only good players that Texas has. It doesn't include Trey Wisner, and it doesn't include Jack injuries, and it doesn't include Murad Watson or Jalen Gilbo or Mookie Taft, right? There are good players on this team. Those players cost money too. We're just doing the exercise where we only count the ones that we know are really expensive. Brandon Bakers is going to be a sophomore this year. He's going into his 2nd season. We know what it cost to get him 2 years ago. So he gets to go in this group of players that have almost these built-in inflated heavy costs. And it's like, well, maybe he's making 7, but maybe Anthony Hill's making 2 with an extra 0 at the end. And so you add them all up. We're just counting them as million for easy math. But Texas has all of that coming back. Next year, A&M's got 10 super blue chips. They'll lose about 3 or 4. 2 through graduation, A&M has a 41% transfer rate among its super blue chips in the last 5 years. What does that mean? Probably going to have somebody transfer. That's what it means.
Plus, the head coach says it's going to be 10 or 12 guys going in the draft.
And Chad, that's the point. Some of those guys that go pro early end up being in that group, right? I mean, you're talking about, you just start looking at that A&M roster, and you can, what if David Hicks has a big year? What if Chase Besantis ever, like, you know what I mean? He's a starter. Does he?
Right.
He's one of those guys. Ruben Father is in the numbers. He doesn't even count anymore, but like that's one of your numbers. That when we count the numbers, they're all not home runs. That's why you need so many of them.
Right. Yeah.
The problem that Texas had for so many years is they had like 6 or 7 on the roster, and at least half of them would suck. Or they'd all be the same position. It'd be receivers and DBs, and it would be like, hey, whole bunch of Brennan Eagles and Anthony I'm just Caden Stearns. You start thinking about the Tom Herman guys, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just telling you, man, Texas is in an incredibly enviable position.
A couple of super chats we will get to, and thanks to over 720 of you in the Specs chat. Let's hear from Specs. Get all stocked up this summer.
This summer, when the sun scorches and sanity is one sweat beat away from collapse, a hero rises. Specs, your cathedral of cold cans, your oasis of cool.
All right, let's go to.
And on one hand, there's no Lisa, but on the other hand, that's the coolest commercial they've ever sent us.
It is a over-the-top, wonderful, and it reminds me I may go see Superman, so it's good. All right, super chat $4.99 from Matthew. Hayes Fawcett tweeted about one commit. Any idea who it could be? Also, who is the highest-paid player, not including Arch Manning?
I mean, Hayes, it could be a number of guys. I mean, there's some thought that Texas. Again, poor little old Texas is just trying to get by and pick up some scraps of food on the way. You know, Smoke Matthews is one of the best prospects in the country at North Carolina, out of North Carolina, one of the best corners in the country. He's a super blue chip, I think, on multiple services, or at least one. He's a national top 70 kind of a guy. I think there's a real sense that when he announces in a few days that he'll commit to Texas. So that's the one that stands out the most right now of what's left on the schedule in the next 7 days.
Yeah, and that's Samari Matthews, as Catch says, Smoke Matthews. God, please go by Smoke.
He does.
Yeah, that would be tremendous. 6 o'clock on Friday is what I've got for Matthews. So keep an eye peeled for that. Matthew. And then
I think it's Anthony Hill, probably, or Colin Simmons, one of those two guys.
I was going to guess one of those two. So, yeah, that would have been.
I had heard that their NIL numbers more than doubled from a year ago. So they're well compensated.
Yeah, Matthew, one of those big dogs is probably your answer. All right, Jerry the Targaryen's back in. Catch $5. You misunderstand me. I'm saying Texas needs to be more SEC and not hope, quote, the price is going to get lower, as you've reported your sources believe.
I just don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I think Texas is more SEC, and I think they're doing this at the same time. What I'm saying is you don't get to Texas's number without doing things SEC style. Doesn't mean that you don't still cry about, and I don't mean you, Jerry, I'm talking about, doesn't mean that like there's not spin that comes from, I'll be honest, I don't think all of the reporters in this market do Texas any favors. I think there were people that set Felix Ojo on fire, and it was like, just let the kid go be a kid. Like I did so much bad stuff at 17. I set a football field on fire in the middle of a JV football game. I didn't go to jail. Like I still had to go to college, graduate. And if that had happened in 2017, like 2025, I'd be like on the front page of I'd go viral, and it'd be the thing I'd be known for my entire life. Everybody in this business needs to grow up and stop being little bitches. And every time a kid picks another school, stop being ugly about it. I've seen it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to tear down Felix Ojo. I don't care if the kid put a Texas hat on. It is as a story as old as time. Chad and I still talk about the time that Dre Kirkpatrick took out a hat in a box, in a bag, in a box, in a bag, and just kept opening up gifts. And you know what? That dude's got a kid in college.
It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, I'm with you, Catch. The breakdown of, like, not that he just did whatever school he picked is one thing, but how they pick gets ripped apart. The way they do it. Did they do it respectfully or did they not do it respectfully? And it's like, this is life-changing, game-changing kind of money for a young man and his family or his friends or whoever, whatever his
Remember
group
when LeBron wrote the letter?
Yes.
So you're just not going to win with some people, man. You're not going to win. It's like, well, did you write something considerate? I tried.
Yeah.
Why did you do it? I thought it would be the best way to do it, like for me to communicate with the fans. And, well, did everybody like the way you did it? No, people still hated me.
Like,
Catch. It turns out, was there anything that you could do? No. Like, I was screwed either way.
Catch, I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday with Braden Rouse, for those that missed it, he had 4 hats in front of him. He had a prepared statement that he read from, and he named at least 4 coaches from all 4 staffs, and he thanked them, and he went through it detail by detail. Then he took a necklace, a lighted necklace of Tennessee, and put it on around his neck, and I guarantee you there were fans out there, Catch, that went, oh, see, there he is, disrespectful. Disrespectful.
Well, he plays for the Longhorns.
Yeah, right. The high
Whose
school
color is orange.
Badass logo too. I love that logo, the Kell High School logo.
There was a lot going on in that announcement. It was like
there really was. But you know at the end there was some old school fan going, see there at the end he put on a glow in the dark necklace. These kids, it's all about themselves. It's just too hot dog for me.
The thing is, like, literally, is there a player in college football in the last season? We just finished. Everybody stop for a second. The 2025 season just ended. Remember? Ohio State won the national championship. Chad, who did they play the national championship game?
I believe they played Notre Dame.
There you go. Good man. Mm-hmm. And if you remember correctly, it was Ohio State beat Texas. Remember that? Mm-hmm. That game happened? Everybody remembers last college football season. Do we remember? Everybody remember the national championship game? In between the first and the second quarter, they came out of a TV timeout and they did their top 10 players in the country who made the worst exhibitions of their announcements when they committed. Remember that?
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Remember that? Remember, every year they show us. No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't care. Nobody remembers how any of the Ohio State players, literally, Ohio State just won the national championship. Not one person remembers how any of those kids made their announcements.
No.
I don't.
Well, and then I see, we all know, Catch, I'm a very strange bird when it comes to this stuff. I love it. Do
you remember Jeremiah Smith announcing? How did he announce?
I don't remember.
I don't either.
No,
Is he good?
I do not remember. Like, I have a certain, he's awesome, in fact. I've
never had somebody say, dude, I think Jeremiah Smith should probably be in the top 3 for the Heisman. Whoa, 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 whoa. Didn't he wear a glow-in-the-dark necklace on the day that he committed? Are you really going to reward that behavior? All I'm trying to ask is that we all acknowledge what buffoonery it is to get lost in these weeds.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right. None of that matters. Would it, at times
not one way a single kid across America announces his decision, whether he just reads it straight-laced, whether he announces it on social media, whether he calls it and broadcasts it, none of it matters.
Yep.
None of it matters.
Yeah, and
I'm feeling disrespected. Oh, you know what this sounds like? Someone planted a flag at the 50-yard line on our emblem.
Yeah, I know.
Don't get your ass kicked.
Exactly. Yeah, and all I ever try to do, Catch, in the decisions, because I love the stuff, I just try to make them even better. Jalen Lott just needs to hold the mic closer to his mouth.
Yes.
I'm not sad at how he did it.
We
Just
like
tweak it
the
up.
entertainment value.
Oh yeah, just tweak it up a little bit. You talked about the box out of a bag, out of the box out of a bag. It was fantastic show. One of my favorites was, what was the cat's name? Isaiah Crowell, maybe. Went to Georgia with the bulldog puppy. Remember when he pulled a live bulldog puppy out of a box?
That Lake Seastrunk that had like a live duck?
Lake Sea and a duck call. Remember he used the duck call.
Look, I know that there were people who, Baylor fans were like, that's some bullshit. The kid from Temple went to Oregon and blew a duck call and just threw it in our face. Let that kid have some fun with a duck call.
Who cares? Who cares? Yes.
And don't watch the game 3 years later and go, well, you know what? Lake Seastrunk might be a fine young man. And you know what? He may have jumped in a swimming pool and like saved a child's life. And you know what? He jumped into a fire. And you know what? He's given all of his money in NIL to orphans.
Yeah. Well,
I can't get over the goddamn duck call, Chad.
Catch the first time Richard Wesley, if he comes off the edge for Texas and makes a huge sack, would it have mattered if he had jumped in a pool with Sarkisian like he jumped in a pool with Dan Lanning? Would it really matter? I mean, come on.
That is the test. The test will be in 3 years. If Richard Wesley,
he's a great test. Yeah.
In 3 years, will they play that video? Now, look, Oregon, that doesn't count.
Right. That's too obvious. Yeah.
That does not count. At any other point, though, in his life as a player at Texas, will they play the swimming pool video? I'm not convinced that it'll happen.
So if I'm the old crotchety fan at DKR and he gets his first sack as a Texas fan and my buddy says, hey, kid's pretty good, is my answer going to be, jumped in a pool with Dan Lanning. Can't forgive him.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I can't forgive him. Sorry.
So here's what I would tell the listeners. Because I know we're not the only website that you go to. We're not the only YouTube channel that you listen to. Start demanding that the other reporters that you watch don't act like little crybabies. Like, it's behavior that we have to break. And every time a kid picks some place, we can't be ready to go with a slander campaign for why, in retrospect, didn't even need this guy because he blew a duck call. Like, just everybody, can we just be like, hey, man, go get the next one? Because you know what happens? That's what Sark does. Sark doesn't get his number one linebacker. Guess what he does? He goes out after the next guy. And you know what? If that guy's committed someplace else and he has to hurt somebody's feelings, he does not care. It's not show feelings. It's show business. Yeah. It's not show friends. It's show business. And Sark, what I love about him is he doesn't get caught in the weeds of like, this kid hurt my – he forgot about Braden Royce yesterday. Okay, we'll move on to Atkinson. Or, hey, we really weren't even in that because like we were waiting on Atkinson to decide what he's going to do, and all of our money that we really want to spend is there. There are just all kinds of moving targets, and the money component of this is such that, again, don't get in your feelings about any of this. If you're Texas, it's such wasted bad energy. I mean, there's so much positive energy. You're looking for negative energy on purpose. If in 2025, this year of the Lord, you are like focused on Jamarian Carlton picking Baylor. Really. It's just like Jamarian Carlton, if he picked Texas, and I'm not saying Texas wouldn't want Jamarian Carlton, but they can't even get Lance Jackson on the field yet. Now, the goal is to keep stacking these guys on campus, but they got Richard Wesley. That guy's at Richard Wesley's position.
Is he better than Richard Wesley?
No.
Okay.
No. So if that kid doesn't want to go to Texas because Lance Jackson signed last year and Richard Wesley's committed now, and
that's realistic, right? You could understand that argument. Whether or not you could understand the argument of going to Waco, that's different. But that football argument is sound.
If that kid's going to get $1 million, if you're Texas, one of the conversation, hey, man, we could get this kid if we offer him. If the money matches, we're good. Well, is that kid going to play next year? No. Will he play in 2 years? Hard to say.
Maybe.
With Jameer Carlton, let's again, real quick. Here's what's at defensive end with eligibility remaining in 2 years. Ready?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Richard Wesley, Lance Jackson, Smith Arogbo, Zena Yamuzalo, and Colton Vasek.
Wow.
Only 2 get to be on the field at one time.
Good Lord. Vasek's still going to have eligibility at that point?
Vasek's a redshirt sophomore this year, so he would be a senior.
Wow.
And technically, Simmons is only a sophomore. Simmons will have eligibility. It would be a bad thing if in 2 years he's still here.
He'll be gone. Yeah, right. Yeah. He'll be gone. And there's probably a good argument that Vasek's probably going to be gone too by that point.
You would think.
Yeah.
But okay. Wesley, Jackson, Smith Arogbo, Zena Yamuzalo. Those guys are still all there.
They are. Yeah.
All of those guys are either redshirt freshmen, true freshmen, or high school. So, like, I'm not saying that Texas isn't going to go out and get big-time edge players moving forward. They will. But what did I just say earlier in the show? The days of Georgia and Alabama having 40 consensus super blue chips on their roster and having 4 and 5 and a half dozen guys at every position. So it seems it's going to be really hard because of the finances of it all. You cannot. Yeah. You can't. Texas couldn't. You know what? Here's what I'd point to. That offensive line class that Texas signed in 2022, where they signed 7 offensive linemen. 2 of them were 5 stars. 4 of them were super blue chips. That'd be really hard to do in 2026 because that alone might cost you $5 million a year for just those guys. And that doesn't mean that all those guys hit. That's just what it costs to get them in. So in the 2022 version of this, Texas staff might have had to have made a decision between DJ Campbell and Kelvin Banks. Maybe you can't get both. Or, boy, if you get both, maybe you can't get Cam Williams to flip from Oregon. I mean, there's only so many millions for unproven offensive line talent that you can spend. So it just gets harder. And so when we talk about Jameer Carlton, like, look, if Jameer Carlton were a tight end, I'd go, okay, well, look, those guys, they got none of those guys. They got some good young talent, but they have no one that qualifies the way that the kid that committed to USC, Mark Bowman, is. Nobody of that level and ilk. Well, then I would say, okay, Turntime fell into this category. They don't have a lot of offensive line super blue chips. Neto is one. DJ Campbell is one. Those guys are gone. The only other guy on campus that fits that qualification is Brandon Baker, and we don't even know how good he is yet. So they need to be adding those level of offensive linemen. I think in a very short amount of time, they've done so well at defensive end that we're just not – they just literally got Richard Wesley 2 weeks ago. They're not going to get everybody.
Yep. All the super chats are done. We appreciate you guys for throwing in on that. One interesting chat I want to get Ketch's thoughts on here in 1 second. Real quick, though, let's make you hungry. Hayes City Store. They're out in Driftwood, and they're serving up all kinds of great stuff. Here are 3 ideas for you at Hayes City. That home run dip is one of my favorite appetizers just ever. You get the queso, you get that great bean dip I've talked about, you get the incredible guacamole, and their salsa up there with the chips is great. The chips are probably the best I've ever had. Great sandwiches. The wings are one of my wife's favorites. The menu's just awesome. We've talked about the pork chops and the burgers and the pizza. You just can't go wrong. Get on out to Hayes City Store. I'll throw up a QR code real quick. If you want to access it that way, make sure you get your reservation ahead of time. Go enjoy. Also, maybe check the weather. Weather can get a little crazy lately with some rains coming in. So make sure you check the weather, get it all set up, and then go have a great time at Hayes City Store. Tell Travis, Tamara, and the crew that we said hello. Great picture. Always makes me hungry. All right, Ketch, I want to get your quick reaction to this one. There's some weird depth to this one. There needs to be another O on one of the words, but other than that, let me know what you think. From Tennessee Longhorn. Ketch, is the roster too expensive to not win a natty?
No, because Texas has not many, but they do have peers. I mean, they still trail Ohio State and Georgia. So
Mm-hmm.
those schools would be asking the same question. And when only one school can win, there are going to be some that will feel like an opportunity I would feel like if I was Georgia, they missed a real opportunity last year. I don't think they'll ever be back to quite as talented of a roster and program as they were a year ago. And maybe not Ohio State either. Like that may be the best version of Ohio State, top to bottom, deepest roster that we'll ever see Ohio State again. And now, and I think last year, those two, Ohio State had the most expensive and they won. Yeah. Georgia lost their quarterback. Otherwise, they may have won. So Texas, no, they're not. No. By the way, Chad, unless we have any more super chats, we got to wrap it up. Like I got to go.
We are done with super chats. You want to buy or sell, or you got to run?
I really got to run.
All right. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. We appreciate it. We appreciate almost 800 of you in the Specs chat. Remember,
hold on. One more thing, Chad.
Yes.
Joe, I need to educate you. What you just described, they don't matter. The number 200 player in the country has the same historical value as the number 800 player in the country. And if you really want to be like, get into the nuts and bolts of it all, the number 80 player in the country basically has the same value as the number 500 player in the country. There's like 70 and not even that many. There's like 65 really that matter. And it doesn't matter if they fall behind. Why did TCU keep beating Texas like a fucking drum for years? Texas had all of the top 100 and 200 guys, and all TCU had was a bunch of 500, 600, 700, 800 guys because it's actually not different. It's what right here. I'm the only person in the entire recruiting industry ever that is man enough and honest enough to just tell you the truth. Not every kid's a major big-time recruit. Massive addition. No, it's not. It's barely better than the 3-star. So, Joe, doesn't matter. They're not falling behind on national top 25, 40, 50, and 60 guys. That, sir, is what matters.
Joe, we appreciate the chat. We appreciate all of you. Y'all have a good one. Remember, tomorrow is a big, big day again with commitments. Lamar Brown at 12:15, right in the middle of the 12 o'clock show, and Jamarion Carlton is a little later in the day. You know who had more national top 100 and 200 kids last year than Texas? Who's that?
Oklahoma.
How
much did that matter?
Oh, my God. That's all I thought about watching the game in Dallas.
Keep that in mind. Look, 24/7 will come out with their blue chip rankings. And they're not a ton different than the super blue chip rankings. In a lot of ways, the same schools are at the top, but there will be some outliers like Oklahoma. That is the single biggest piece of proof that I can give you that a regular 4-star player just doesn't mean anything is Oklahoma. Because their team was full of them last year. How'd that work out? Texas had twice as many elite level prospects on their team, but fewer 100 and 200 guys. How'd each team's season go? I forget.
Yeah, a little different.
I mean,
a little bit.
If you watched that game and you thought those two things were the same thing, when 24/7 comes out with their blue chip numbers, look at those Oklahoma numbers and ask yourself, should I pay attention to anything that tells me that Oklahoma and Texas are the same right now? All right. Thank you all for jumping in. Thank you all for supporting Orange Bloods Live. Be sure to catch the show tomorrow with those two big commitments. Catch is going to have you covered, and I will talk to y'all on Monday. My kid's getting orientated into college, so we're going to go try to get a college student all. Play some Kenny Rogers on the way there. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Love Will Turn You Around is in my wife's playlist, so we may hear it. We literally might hear it tonight. I do think Diane Lane is legal in that picture. Is that right? Okay. It's close in that movie. Like the things they have her do in that movie are, she better have been 18. That's some backwoods country math I'm not sure if I want to do because I'm not sure where that ends up. But she
is obviously
knocking
a
on
legend.
that trailer. Like, hey, can she be in bed by 10 instead of trying to seduce the race car driver?
Six pack. Great movie, kids. If you haven't seen it, y'all take care. We are Orange Bloods Live.
Love will turn you around, turn you around.